Williams Funeral Directors have been proudly serving the people of this community since 1918. Service is our motto. The poor, the rich, the middle class and all are given the best of care and attention at all times. You have the privilege to select what you want. In your time of need, contact the capable, the competent, and the dependable staff of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home who is genuinely concerned with your care. At J.W. Williams Funeral Home, you are aptly served by the proprietor president, Deacon Arthur L. Parker, who continues the traditions and values set forth by the past president, Dr. Napoleon Williams. Your announcers for the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Sunday morning program are Deacon Arthur L. Parker, Reverend Isaac H. Owens, Mrs. Calandra Wilkerson Parker, Minister Frankie Harmon, Ms. Sandra Johnson, and Deacon Earl Clark, Jr.
Thank you, and good morning, friends. We come to you this beautiful Mother's Day to bring announcements, dedications, and songs. We certainly hope that your day may be brighter after listening to our program. The family of Mother Katie Viola Felton Killings of Binghamton, New York, formerly of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mrs. Martha Renee Fuller Hill of Americus, Georgia. The family of Mr. Joe Blake of Vienna, Georgia. The family of United States Army veteran, Mrs. Carla Lucas Harris of Bonaire, Georgia, would like to thank their many friends for the food, the flowers, the condolences, and all other expressions of sympathy and kindness shown to them during their hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. Mother Katie Viola Felton Mackenzie Killings, age 93, of 129 Front Street, Binghamton, New York, formerly of Cordele, Georgia, died Wednesday, April 28th, at the Bridgewood Nursing and Rehabilitation Center in Binghamton, New York. The funeral service for Mother Katie Viola Felton Mackenzie Killings, age 93, was held Friday, May 7th, graveside at the Macedonia Baptist Church Cemetery, Drayton Community, Vienna, Georgia. The Reverend Isaac H. Owens, pastor of the Mount Calvary Baptist Church, officiated. Survivors include a beloved and devoted son, the Reverend Andrew Brooks, and his wife, Mrs. Debbie Brooks of Jacksonville, Florida. A beloved stepdaughter, Miss Ida Ruth Bryant of Cordele, Georgia. Her caring sister-in-law, Mrs. Barbara Felton of Endicott, New York. A host of loving and devoted nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends, to include her Macedonia Baptist Church family, survive Mother Katie Viola Felton Mackenzie Killings, age 93, of 129 Front Street, Binghamton, New York, formerly of Cordele, Georgia. Mrs. Martha Renee Fuller Hill, age 43, of 706 North Mayo Street, Americus, Georgia, died Thursday, April 29th, at the Phoebe Sumter Medical Center in Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Martha Renee Fuller Hill, age 43, was held Saturday, May 8th, graveside at the Eastview Cemetery in Americus, Georgia. Her beloved aunt, Evangelist Sarah Dice, officiated. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Miss Bridget Hill, Miss LaCuria Hill, Miss April Fuller, Miss Deshala Hill, and Mr. Anthony Walker, all of Americus, Georgia. 3 beloved grandchildren, her loving and devoted mother, Miss Shirley Hall of Americus, Georgia. Her beloved father, Mr. Isaiah Fuller Jr., a beloved sister, Miss Jessica Fuller of Americus, Georgia. Her beloved brothers, Mr. Israel Fuller and his companion, Miss Ashley Brown of Ellaville, Georgia. Mr. Isaiah Fuller and his wife, Mrs. Cassandra Fuller of Americus, Georgia. Her beloved aunts and uncles, Mr. Keith Hall and his wife, Mrs. Nettie Hall, Mr. Johnny Hall and his wife, Mrs. Barbara Hall, Mr. Samuel Hall, Mr. Walter Fuller and his wife, Mrs. Dorothy Fuller, Mr. Elmo Fuller and his wife, Mrs. Jessie Fuller, Deacon Roosevelt Fuller and his wife, Mrs. Lena Fuller, Mr. Joel Hall, Mr. Raymond McCrae, Ms. Desi Fuller, Ms. Everine Robinson, Mrs. Mary Lizzie Harris, Mrs. Mary Alice Harris, Ms. Shanita Hall, Ms. Mary Lou Davis, Mrs. Annie Ruth Thomas, and Ms. Barbara Dice, a host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mrs. Martha Renee Fuller Hill, age 43, of 706 North Mayo Street, Americus, Georgia. Mr. Joe Blake, age 80 and age 93, of 510 Clover Street, Vienna, Georgia, died Thursday, April 29, 2021, at his residence in Vienna, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Joe Blake, age 93, was held Saturday, May 8th, graveside at the Vienna City Cemetery in Vienna, Georgia. The Reverend Johnny Dean, pastor of the New Poplar Springs Baptist Church, officiated. Survivors include his loving and devoted wife, Mrs. Lucy May Blake of Vienna, Georgia. His loving and devoted children, Miss Claudia May Blake and Mr. Bobby Joe Blake, both of Vienna, Georgia. Mr. Jack Blake of Dubai, Mrs. Joyce Ann Blake, Mrs. Barbara Jean Blake, Mr. Dennis Bernard Blake, Mr. Joseph Blake, and Mr. Cecil Blake, all of Vienna, Georgia. His beloved and devoted grandchildren, Mrs. Sheena Davis of Sandersville, Georgia, Miss Trina Blake of Milledgeville, Georgia, Miss Jessica Blake of Perry, Georgia, Mr. Charlie C. Dawson of Cordell, Georgia, Mr. Donald Lamar Blake of Warner Robins, Georgia, Mr. Bobby Blake Jr. of Cordell, Georgia, Mr. Lavaris Blake of Drayton, Georgia, and Mr. Brandley Malik Blake of Unadilla, Georgia. 3 beloved great-grandchildren, a beloved brother, Mr. Sammy Lee McKenzie, and his wife, Mrs. Martha McKenzie of Cordell, Georgia, a host of other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mr. Joe Blake, age 93, of 510 Clover Street, Vienna, Georgia. United States Army veteran Mrs. Carla Lucas Harris, age 55, of 204 Fox Hall Boulevard, Bon Air, Georgia, died Monday, May 3rd, at the Houston Medical Center in Warner Robins, Georgia. The funeral service for United States Army veteran Mrs. Carla Lucas Harris, age 55, was held Saturday, May 8th, graveside at the Pleasant Hill Baptist Church Cemetery in Byronville, Georgia. The Reverend Jerome Glover, pastor of the Little Poplar Springs Baptist Church, officiated. Survivors include her loving and devoted husband, Mr. Armour Mike Harris, Sr. of Bon Air, Georgia. Her loving children, Mr. Stasia White and Mr. Armour M. Harris, Jr. of Warner Robins, Georgia. 3 loving grandchildren, her beloved sister, Mrs. Chandra L. Woodson of Locust Grove, Georgia. Her beloved brother, Mr. Lawrence H. Jones of Byronville, Georgia. Her beloved aunts and uncles, Mr. Willie C. Childs and his wife, Mrs. Carolyn Child, Mr. Eddie C. Childs, Mr. John Child, all of Atlanta, Georgia. Her beloved nieces, Miss Kishana Jones of Centerville, Georgia, and Miss Lateria Woodson of Locust Grove, Georgia. Her special nephews, Mr. Timothy Woodson, Jr. of Byronville, Georgia. A host of cousins to include a special cousin, Mrs. LaCoria Stevens of Douglasville, Georgia, Miss Loretta Walters of Vienna, Georgia, Mr. Lionel Childs of Perry, Georgia, Mr. Antoine Childs of Atlanta, Georgia, 10 beloved sisters-in-law, 7 brothers-in-law, a host of other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends to include her special friend, Miss Mary Foster of Warner Robins, Georgia, and Miss Michelle Gaines of Kathleen, Georgia. All survived. United States Army veteran Mrs. Carla Lucas Harris, age 55, of 204 Fox Hall Boulevard, Bon Air, Georgia. Again, the family of Mother Katie Felton Killings of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mrs. Martha Renee Fuller Hill of Americus, Georgia, the family of Mr. Joe Blight of Vienna, Georgia, the family of United States Army veteran Mrs. Carla Lucas Harris of Bon Air, Georgia, would like to thank their many friends for all of the many kindnesses shown to them during the hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. May God bless each of you, is their prayer. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors serving Cordele and Vienna were in charge of each of these arrangements during the past week. And now, it is certainly with the deepest regret that we make the following announcements. Mother Jessie Alma Lou Ezel, age 94, of 405 South 13th Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Friday, May 7th, at the home of her beloved niece, Miss May Beal of Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include a beloved godson, Mr. Eddie Hughes, Jr. of Cordele, Georgia, a beloved goddaughter, Miss Minnie Redding of Cordele, Georgia, her devoted nieces and nephew, Mrs. May Beal, and her husband, Mr. James Beal Jr. of Cordele, Georgia, who served as her devoted caregivers, Mr. Willie Putman and Mr. Avery Putman, both of Cordele, Georgia, Mrs. Donalene Mosley of Albany, Georgia, Mr. Charlie Ezel Jr., Mrs. Ernestine Jackson, Mrs. Gloria Jean Gordon, all of Ashburn, Georgia, a devoted cousin, Mrs. Naomi Stubbs of Cordele, Georgia, a host of other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mother Jessie Alma Ezel, age 94, of 405 South 13th Street, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mother Jessie Alma Ezel, age 94, will be held Friday, May 14th at 12 noon at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Portico in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Morris Hillsman, pastor of the Shiloh Baptist Church, will officiate. The burial will follow at the Pleasant Hill Church Cemetery, Hatley Community, Cordele, Georgia. The public walk-up visitation will be Thursday, May 13, at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Miss Tanya Latrice Sanders, age 48, of 215 Ross Street, Montezuma, Georgia, died Wednesday, May 5th, at the Pine Point Hospice in Macon, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Miss Latrija Sanders of McDonald, Georgia, Miss Kendra Sanders, and Miss Malika Sanders, both of Montezuma, Georgia. 3 loving grandchildren, her beloved father, Mr. Thomas Sanders, her loving and devoted sisters, Miss Lisa C. Tuff, Mrs. Angela Mathis, and her husband, Mr. Willie Mathis, Miss Latrina Sanders Hubbard, and her husband, Mr. Timothy Hubbard, and Miss Marcia Sanders Perry, all of Montezuma, Georgia. Her beloved brothers, Mr. Ronnie C. Smith of Montezuma, Georgia, the Reverend Jerry Sanders and his wife, Mrs. Brittany Sanders of Americus, Georgia, Mr. Antoine Sanders, Mr. Thomas Oliver and his wife, Mrs. Dorothy Oliver, and Mr. Eric Chastain, all of Montezuma, Georgia. Her beloved aunts and uncles, Mrs. Patricia Smith of Montezuma, Georgia, Mrs. Kimberly Thomas and her husband, Mr. Ted Thomas of Albany, Georgia, Mrs. Viola Mann and her husband, Mr. John Henry Mann of West Palm Beach, Florida, Mrs. Louise Smith, Mr. Donaldson Smith and his wife, Mrs. Catherine Smith, Mr. Robert Smith and his wife, Mrs. Felicia Smith, and Mrs. Ozzie Loman, all of Montezuma, Georgia. A host of nieces, nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Miss Tanya Latrice Sanders, age 48, of 215 Ross Street, Montezuma, Georgia. The funeral service for Miss Tanya Latrice Sanders will be held Saturday, May 15, on the grounds of the Bethlehem Baptist Church in Newland, Georgia. Her beloved brother, the pastor, Reverend Jerry Sanders, will officiate. The burial will follow at the Spring Hill Church Cemetery in Marshallville, Georgia. The public walk-up visitation will be Friday, May 14, from 1 until 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mr. Hiram Ford, age 50, of Macon, Georgia, died Friday, May 7th at Navison Health in Macon, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted children, Mr. Hiram Ford Jr., Miss Hillary Nicole Ford, Miss Alexandra Ford, all of Cordele, Georgia. His loving and devoted sisters and brother, Mrs. Ann Brown and her husband, Mr. Willie James Brown, Miss Janice Bush, Mrs. Mattie Pope and her husband, Mr. Arthur Pope, and Mr. Alvin Ford, all of Cordele, Georgia. Mrs. Luann Holmes of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Miss Geraldine Brown and Mrs. Judy Williams, both of Tampa, Florida. A host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mr. Hiram Ford, age 50, of Macon, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Hiram Ford will be announced at a later date, pending the completion of the arrangements. Miss Geneva Green Lucane, age 73, of 154 Olson Drive, Leslie, Georgia, died Friday, May 7th, at the home of her beloved daughter in Auburn, Alabama. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Mrs. Amy Marie Lucane of Auburn, Alabama, Mr. Eddie Lucane Jr. and his wife, Mrs. Marilyn Lucane of Albany, Georgia. Her beloved grandchildren, Miss Jasmine Lucane of Maryland, Mr. Christian Wiley of Auburn, Alabama, and Mr. Jalen Lucane of Butler, Georgia. One great-grandchild, Lil Kinsley Oliver of Maryland. Her loving and caring sisters, Mrs. Archie Harris and her husband, Mr. Charles Harris, and Miss Diane Furlow of Leslie, Georgia. Mrs. Bertha Smith and her husband, Mr. Marlon Smith, Mrs. Levon Sims and her husband, Mr. Tim Sims, and Miss Bobby Green, all of Americus, Georgia. Her beloved brothers, Mr. Edward Green and his wife, Mrs. Jenny Green of Leslie, Georgia. Mr. Roosevelt Green and his wife, Mrs. Amy Green of Denver, Colorado. And Mr. Charlie Green and his wife, Mrs. Yvette Green of Albany, Georgia. A host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mrs. Geneva Green Lucane, age 73, of 154 Olson Drive, Leslie, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Geneva Green Lucane, age 73, will be announced at a later date, pending the completion of the arrangements. Miss Bertha LaShawn Tyner Holt, age 48, of 408 West Hill Street, Americus, Georgia, died Friday, May 7th, of injuries sustained in an automobile accident. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Mrs. Sierra Watts and her husband, Mr. Cleveland R. Watts of DeSoto, Georgia, Mr. Mark Kendrick Jackson of Ellerville, Georgia, Miss Chastity Holt of Americus, Georgia. Her beloved grandchildren, Cameron Alien Watts of DeSoto, Georgia. Her loving mother, Mrs. Bertha May Tyner of Leslie, Georgia. Her beloved sisters and brothers, Mr. Thomas C. Tyner of Florida, Miss Teresa Tyner of Jacksonville, Florida, Miss Tanya Abrams and her husband, Mr. Darren Abrams, Mrs. Julia L. Tyner, and Mrs. Shanetta Tyner Lassiter and her husband of Americus, Georgia. Mr. Reginald Tyner of Macon, Georgia. A host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Miss Bertha LaShawn Tyner Holt, age 48, of 408 West Hill Street, Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for Miss Bertha LaShawn Tyner Holt, age 48, will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangement. Mrs. Carrie Amelia Jackson Brown, age 72, of 1007 Thomas Mill Road, Plains, Georgia, died Saturday, May 8th at her residence in Plains, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Mrs. Vernita Sampson and her husband, Mr. Paul Sampson, and Miss Wendy Adams of Plains, Georgia. Mr. Derek Brown and his wife, Mrs. Kimberly Brown of Libron, Georgia. 9 beloved grandchildren. Her beloved and devoted brothers, Mr. Clyde Jackson Jr. of Plains, Georgia, and Mr. Jeffrey Tullis and his wife, Mrs. Daphne Tullis of Atlanta, Georgia. Her beloved and devoted sisters, Mrs. Martha Foster and her husband, Mr. Napoleon Foster of Swanee, Georgia. Mrs. Annie Wilson and her husband, Mr. Marvin Wilson of Americus, Georgia. Mrs. Betty Jean Burden and her husband, Mr. Matthew Burden. And Mrs. Brenda Battle and her husband, Mr. Jonathan Battle of Plains, Georgia. A host of nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mrs. Carrie Amelia Jackson Brown, age 72, of 1007 Thomas Mill Road, Plains, Georgia. The funeral service for Miss Carrie Amelia Jackson Brown will be announced at a later date, pending the completion of the arrangements. Mr. Willie James Brown, age 74, of Cordele, Georgia, died Saturday, May 8th at the Tiff Regional Medical Center in Tifton, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted wife, Mrs. Annie Ford Brown of Tifton, Georgia. His loving and devoted children, Mrs. Ella Williams and Mr. Rodell Ford, both of Cordele, Georgia. Mr. William Ford of Americus, Georgia, and Miss Alvita Ford of Tifton, Georgia. A beloved brother, Mr. Philip Brown of Cordele, Georgia. His beloved sister, Miss Joyce McKenzie of Baltimore, Maryland. A host of grandchildren, great-grandchildren, nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mr. Willie James Brown, age 74, of 401 East 16th Street, Tifton, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Willie James Brown, age 74, will be announced at a later date, pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors, serving Cordele and Vienna, are in charge of each of these arrangements during this week. Friends, that conclude our funeral notices for this morning. And as always, we do remind you concerning our pre-funeral arrangements planning available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home, with packages available with a single pay, a 3-year pay, a 5-year pay, and a 10-year pay. So please stop by and talk with us concerning your pre-funeral arrangements needs available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. And also whole life insurance is available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home.
Lord, we pray for all mothers today, beautiful and wonderful as they feel the earth. Gracious in your call, they carry life and a bond of love for the children that they bring forth. We ask for you to bless our mothers today. May they feel the joys of motherhood every day and all of their struggles, giving us a livelihood. And may your love and compassion be with them for always and forever. And for our mothers who are no longer with us, we pause on this day to honor them, to remember them, and to reflect upon the love that they so graciously shared from one day to another. And while they are not with us in the physical, we forever remember the love and the holding them close in our hearts today. May every mother feel today the pride and beauty of a family they bear through all the pain and sorrow. Lord, keep them strong as they go on from this day. We ask these blessings and we pray in your name, amen. This prayer of hope and encouragement comes to you from the President, CEO, management, and staff of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Happy Mother's Day to mothers everywhere as we honor and salute you today on your very special day of recognition, honor, and to all those who serve as a mother-like figure to children everywhere, we honor you as well for your love, your character, and the patience that you exemplify as you go from day to day. This morning as we begin with our memorials to our Mother's Day. We say Happy Mother's Day and we reflect upon our mothers who are no longer with us. In love and memory of our precious mothers in heaven, you are missed so much. And this program and our dedication this morning is dedicated in love and memory of Mrs. Annie Claude Telfair Hollis, in love and memory of Miss Bessie Mae Lewis, in love and memory of Mrs. Willie Mae Mobley, who departed this life May 7, 2020. Love and memory of Mother Ethel McGill, Mother Willie Lou Council King, Mother Agnes Whitehead, Mother Margie Wilson, Mother Laura Colson, Sister Tommy Hudgens, Sister Sarah Jane McClendon, Sister Nadine Bridges, Sister Aline Price, Sister Brenda McGill Lunsford, Sister Betty Lou Cuffey, Sister Minnie Dixon, Sister Hazel Williams, Sister Lenny Tooks, Sister Lois Carter, Sister Ethel Mae Denard, Sister Jarquita Mumford, Sister Marilyn Bridges, Sister Alberta King, Mother Ella Mae Paul, Sister Linda Parker, Sister Lola B. Lewis, Sister Loretha McGill, Sister Cilla Mae Smith, Sister Bobby Martin, Sister Shirley Holder, Mother Lizzie Johnson, Sister Nellie McGill, Sister Shirley Jackson, Sister Mother Willieva Talbert, Mrs. Candace Everett, Mother Carrie Lee Porter, Mother Lois P. Wellens Jones, Mrs. Annie Mae Coffin, Mrs. Emma Everett, Deaconess Sylvia Denard, Mother Sarah Dykes, Miss Lovey Lee Sanders, who departed this life May 6, 1997, Miss Gussie Lee Davis, Miss Mary Applin, Miss Frederica Lewis, Miss Mary Etta Paul, Mrs. Catherine James, Mrs. Eroyce Davis, and all those mothers who have gone on before. We pause at this time to reflect and to remember and to cherish each of you. Our first selection this morning. we continue this morning with our Mother's Day, we say happy Mother's Day, we continue with our dedications. This selection is being dedicated to Miss Jamie Colvin, Miss Asia Dawson, Ms. Shanita Grace, Miss Patricia Larkin, Miss Cynthia Lattimore, Miss Sheila Smith, Miss Shonda Jackson, Miss Dorothy King, Miss Valerie Levant, Miss Jamesia Porter, Mrs. Teresa W. Wright, Miss Willie Mae Leary, Miss Patricia Leary, Mrs. Faye Leary, Miss DeAndrea Carter, Miss Summer Leary, Mother Jessie K. Harmon, Miss Katie Simpson, Miss Ruby Daniels, Miss Rosa Harmon, Miss Beulah Morgan, Miss Casey Harmon, Miss Willie Pearl Reed, Miss Maggie Harmon, Miss Annie Mae Cooks, Mother Ethel Fullwood, Miss Crystal Bryant, Missionary Clemmy Jones, Mother Lucille Shazer, Miss Brenda Webb, Miss Betty Webb, Miss Deshae Cross, Miss Delcerie Cross, Miss Doris Wise, Miss Kalisha Linder, Miss Cassandra Fisher, Miss Deneen Ford, Miss Talika Harris Ford, Miss Cherie Shazer, Miss Dorothy Rose Jones, Miss Charlie Mae Lemons, Miss Mary Frances Davis, Mother Willeen McGill, Miss Mary Taylor, Miss Burrow Patrick, Miss Madeline Hamilton, Miss Loretta Fields, Miss Dorothy Rose Jones, Sister Barbara Dennis, Sister Lucille McGill. Happy Mother's Day to Sister Gwen Westbrook, Sister Shanice McGill, Mother Grace Jones. Also, happy Mother's Day to Mother Grace Patrick, Sister Della McGill, Sister Rosie Williams, Sister Azzie McGill, Sister Lenora McGill, Sister Kathy McGill. Happy Mother's Day to Mother Mary Butler, Mother Vera Mae Rivers, Sister Tracy McGill, Sister Tara Bowens, Sister Sherelle Mapp, Sister Tamika Lewis. Happy Mother's Day to Sister Carrie Brooks, Sister O.C. Outlaw, Sister Maddie Mae Patrick, Sister Margaret Patrick. Happy Mother's Day to Lady Charlotte Schroeder, Sister Minnie Redding, Sister Alberta Hamilton, Sister Shirley Cobb, Sister Geraldine Harvey, Sister Carletta Lewis, Sister Patricia Patrick, Sister Clara McGill. Happy Mother's Day to Sister Barbara Bly, Sister Lizzie Hooks, Sister Linda Wilson, Sister Barbara Wilson, and happy birthday to Sister Barbara Wilson, who celebrated her birthday on Saturday. Sister Sheila Jackson, happy Mother's Day to Sister Deborah Williams, Sister Ruby Ross, Sister Thelma Harper, Sister Janice Mumphrey, Sister Janice Jones. Happy Mother's Day to Sister Sonia Watkins, Sister Brenda Redding, Sister Mary Lane, Sister Carolyn Williams, Sister Gail Darby, Sister Christine Rogers, Sister Alicia Grant, Sister Gloria Patrick Hughes. Happy Mother's Day to Sister Yolanda Adderley, Sister Michelle Solomon, Sister Marsha Whitehead, Sister Senecas Whitehead. So happy Mother's Day to Elect Lady Deborah Patterson, Sister Glendora Tolber, Sister Tasha Harper, Sister Lynette Ross, Sister Priscilla Carter, Sister Tammy Lewis. Happy Mother's Day to Sister Shanteria Lewis, Sister Tiffany Lester. We also have to say Happy Mother's Day to Sister Chastity Lester, Sister Shanicia Harlan, and Sister Tiffany Lewis. Happy Mother's Day to Mrs. Alice Lester, Mrs. Shaquita Hill, Mrs. Ann Whitehead, Mrs. Carletta Lewis, Mrs. Lavetta Corbin, Mother Ida Bell Patrick, Mrs. Annette Sibridge, Mrs. Minnie Fletcher, to Mrs. Florine Manning. And we say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers of our churches of our community, to the mothers of all of our area churches. As we continue this morning, we say Happy Mother's Day to Mrs. Lucille Hillman of Ashburn, Georgia. Happy Mother's Day to my mother-in-law, Exhorter Dorothy Jones. Also to my mother-in-law, Mrs. Mary Ford. And we say Happy Mother's Day to all of our mothers this morning as we celebrate you and honor you on your very special day. And may today be filled with great joy. Our next selection this morning.
Is our another day's selection?
Next selection.
announcement. Mother Jessie Alma Ezel, age 94, of 405 South 13th Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Friday, May 7th, at the home of her beloved niece, Miss May Beal, in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mother Jessie Alma Ezel, age 94, will be held Friday, May 14th at 12 noon at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Portico in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Morris Hillsman, pastor of the Shiloh Baptist Church, will officiate. The burial will follow at the Pleasant Hill Church Cemetery, Hatley Community, Cordele, Georgia. The public walk-up visitation will be Thursday, May 13th at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Miss Tanya Latrice Sanders, age 48, of 215 Ross Street, Montezuma, Georgia, died Wednesday, May 5th, at the Pine Point Hospice in Macon, Georgia. The funeral service for Miss Tanya Latrice Sanders, age 48, will be held Saturday, May 15, on the grounds of the Bethlehem Baptist Church in Doolin, Georgia. Her beloved brother, the pastor, Reverend Jerry Sanders, will officiate. The burial will follow at the Spring Hill Church Cemetery in Marshallville, Georgia. The public walk-up visitation will be Friday, May 14th, from 1 p.m. until 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mr. Hiram Ford, age 50, Macon, Georgia, died Friday, May 7th at Navison Health in Macon, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Hiram Ford, age 50, will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. Mrs. Geneva Green Lucane, age 73, of 154 Olson Drive, Leslie, Georgia, died Friday, May 7th, at the home of her daughter in Auburn, Alabama. The funeral service for Mrs. Geneva Green Lucane, age 73, will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. Miss Bertha LaShawn Tyner Holt, age 48, of 408 West Hill Street, Americus, Georgia, died Friday, May 7th, of injuries sustained in an automobile accident. The funeral service for Mrs. Bertha LaShawn Tyner Holt, age 48, will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. Mrs. Carrie Amelia Jackson Brown, age 72, of 1007 Thomas Mill Road, Plains, Georgia, died Saturday, May 8th, at her residence in Plains, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Carrie Amelia Jackson Brown, age 72, will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. Mr. Willie James Brown, age 74, of Tifton, Georgia, died Saturday, May 8th, at the Tift Regional Medical Center in Tifton, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Willie James Brown, age 74, will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams funeral directors serving Cordele and Vienna are in charge of each of these arrangements during this week. Our next and final selection for this morning is dedicated to the bereaved families whose loved ones were laid to rest during the past week. The family of Mother Katie Felton Killings of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mrs. Martha Renee Fuller Hill of Americus, Georgia, the family of Mr. Joe Blake of Vienna, Georgia, the family of United States Army veteran Mrs. Carla Lucas Harris of Bon Air, Georgia. This election is dedicated to the bereaved families whose loved ones will be laid to rest during this week. The family of Mother Jessie Alma Ezel of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Miss Tanya Latrice Sanders of Montezuma, Georgia, the family of Mr. Hiram Ford of Macon, Georgia, the family of Mrs. Geneva Green Lucane of Leslie, Georgia, the family of Mrs. Bertha LaShawn Tyner Holt of Americus, Georgia, the family of Mrs. Carrie Amelia Jackson Brown of Plains, Georgia, the family of Mr. Willie James Brown of Tifton, Georgia. This election is dedicated to all of the sick and shut-in, to all patients in the local and surrounding hospitals, nursing homes, rehabilitation centers, to our beloved ministers and their devoted family members, to all retired educators, to the men and women serving in our armed forces, both stateside and abroad, to all veterans, and to everyone who listens to our program on each Sunday morning. It's a pleasure for us to bring it to you, and especially on this beloved Mother's Day. Our selection this morning goes out in memory of our past president, Dr. Napoleon Williams. To my wife, happy Mother's Day to Calandra Wilkerson Parker, from her son, Jai Wilkerson Parker. Happy Mother's Day to my mother-in-law, Mrs. Billy Ann Hall, and family. This selection goes out to my brother, retired Chief Master Sergeant Norman F. Dexter, and special Mother's Day wishes goes out to our sister, Dr. Gwendolyn Maxine Dexter and family of Diana, Georgia, especially from Toria and Dale, says Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to my sisters, Mrs. Maddie Mae Johnson, better known as Sister Girl. Happy Mother's Day, Sister Girl. And to my sister, Mrs. Patsy Jackson, happy Mother's Day. And again, to each and every mother, happy Mother's Day. To my neighbor, Miss Theron Jones, happy Mother's Day. And to Mrs. Easter Sanders and family, happy Mother's Day. And Mother Easter May Byram, happy Mother's Day. To Mrs. Willie Mae Kraft, happy Mother's Day. And happy Mother's Day to each and every one. God bless you, and thank you for all of the Mother's Day dedications that you sent in to us.
us this morning. We hope you've enjoyed our program. Tune in again on next Sunday morning. Remember, in your time of need, contact the competent, capable, and dependable staff at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home.
Some of these days.